Hello, guys. Welcome to the Gab and Juls Show. I'm here in Switzerland, in Zurich, for the Women's Euros, and Gab is still between the US and England. I'm not really sure, to be fair, where he is. So we asked Rob Palmer, who kindly came down from the railroad to Hammersmith in our studio in London to be with me on the show. And we had a normal packed show for you with some Club World Cup, some transfer news and things like that. But obviously, with the terrible news that happened this morning, or was announced this morning, that Diogo Jota passed away at the age of 28, we thought we had to start with our own little tribute to the Portuguese and Liverpool forward. And Rob is a player that you liked and that you knew quite well as a footballer.
Yeah, I followed his career at Jules from when he was a teenager, and he came over to play for Atletico Madrid in 2016. And never actually played for Atletico. He was such a young talent. They sent him back to Porto, where he developed his career at Porto. Made such an impression that Wolverhampton Wanderers took him on loan, and then he moved to Wolves, made an impression in the Premier League, came up to Liverpool, where they absolutely adored him. He scored 7 goals in his opening 10 matches, the best since Robbie Fowler was at the peak of his powers as well. And he's one of those players that the supporters loved. He was quiet, never grabbed the headlines apart from scoring his goals, never demanded the spotlight as well. But you have to be a somebody when on Merseyside, where I've made the journey from today, you have your own song with the Liverpool supporters, and it's absolutely horrible, heartbreaking. Those news, absolutely lost for words.
A lovely guy as well in terms of personality, as well as being a great goal scorer and footballer. And there was so much, obviously, for him as a Liverpool fan, just won the Nations League with Portugal, to look forward to this new season with all the new signings, all the ambition. He had a few injuries last season again that maybe didn't give him the season that he would have liked. So all I thought, obviously, with the Jota family, with his wife, is they just got married last weekend. The 3 children that they have together, the whole Jota family, all the Liverpool family as well, all the fans, everybody that will be really, really deeply affected by this terrible news. Well, Rob, let's start with the show, because as I said, we had a show packed before this terrible news, and we wanted to together to talk a little bit about the Club World Cup, because it's going on in the US. Whether you're a fan of it or not a fan of it, you watch it, you don't watch it, there's still big games happening, big things happening, great goals, disappointments, and more happy moments for the team that qualified. The quarterfinals are about to be played as we record this morning. The show, it will be later today on Thursday. But we had maybe the biggest shock of all in the last 16, with Manchester City facing AlHilals from Saudi Arabia, and AlHilals, now coached by Simone Inzaghi, beating Pep Guardiola and his players 4-3 in what was quite an incredible game, really, overall. First of all, what did you make of the game and of this defeat by Guardiola and City?
Hey, it was an outstanding game, wasn't it? Maybe the game of the tournament so far, the one that just refused to stop. There was a twist and a turn all along the way. Said he thought they had it won, and as the ball cleared off the line, and again they had everything as well, and maybe just teaches us that there is a lot of football beyond the shores of Europe, and maybe these Saudi players should be taken seriously, especially the players out there. And you see some of the players that are playing for them as well, and you're, my goodness, he's still going. He's still at the peak of his powers as well. And I think maybe it was a lesson learned for Manchester City. We all know had a dreadful season. They're going through this rebuild in the summer as well, and everyone's thinking, well, maybe yes, Dr. Pepper's cured things here, but it certainly hasn't. And it went back to the ways of maybe 3 or 4 months ago when they were struggling to find their identity in the Premier League.
Yeah, you're right. I think cured is the right word. We saw them against Juventus in the last game of their group stage, where they won and played really, really well, both with the ball and to some extent without the ball. And we thought, okay, mate, this is the new City. There's a lot of options. You can play with wingers, you can play with 10s, you can play with a bit of everything. He tried the back 3. So there's a lot of things that he tried in this tournament that actually looked like it was working. And then, as you said, we go back to all those, especially defensive mistakes that we saw last season that really, really hindered the season. And then they are back in transition on that Malcolm goal, for example, from City's own corner, that you get done by a Cancelo long ball, and Malcolm just goes through on his own. Ait Nouri and Reinders can't catch him, and he scores. To the imbalance that we saw when they didn't have the ball, the pressing that they're trying that didn't really work out, things like that, which is exactly what they didn't do well last season, the problems from last season. And then you thought, okay, surely you will address those problems and get better. And instead, certainly for now, it's exactly the same issues. Going forward, they will never have any problems. They have too many good players, goal scorers, creative players. So going forward, it will never be a problem. It's defensively, right? That I think we are worried about them.
Yeah, I think I'm married to a Manchester City supporter, so I hear this day and night, especially nights. You woke up in the middle of the night to watch the whole game. And it's very easy to blame the defence and the defenders. But, in the previous life, I played in goal. And you mentioned there that, they broke from the opposition area. And if you were Ederson in goal, you'd never need a pair of binoculars to see your nearest defender. They're defending 10 or 15 yards into the opposing half. The central defenders they do have are not particularly pacey. They're very good players and they're tall players. But Pep seems to be stocked out with central defenders. We can blame the new fullback, Nouri, but, his attributes are getting forward as well. Yeah. I think the issue is a team issue, isn't it? And maybe something that Pep has to address as well, is that you look in the midfield, and if they don't have Rodri in the team, Kovacic is injured at the moment as well. They don't have any ballast. Number sixes, as the kids say these days, halfbacks, as my dad would have said, holding midfield players in another parlance as well. And they don't have anybody in there to have the defensive shape when they're not playing to their strengths, which is attacking. And their weakness at the moment is very much their defending, and he doesn't have a Busquets about. What would it be if he could find another Rodri or another Busquets or somebody in there to give them an alternative, just so they have somebody who can sit back when everybody else goes flying forward in this Pep Guardiola cavalier style?
Yeah, you're right. So Reinders played as the sixth in this game, and he did so also in the group stage of the Club World Cup. But as soon as the level goes up, I think as good as he is, and he's definitely not a number six, but you can probably make him and transform him into a number six, as you mentioned, or another term that you can use for that position. And that might work. But for now, he's clearly not ready to be the shield in front of your back four, especially when your back four has Ait Nouri on the left and Mateus Nunes on the right, who are two. Well, one is a super attacking left back, as you just said, and that's his game. And the other one was a midfielder, even more than an attacking midfielder, that had been transformed into or moved into a right back by Pep for necessity, really, last season, and that is not really comfortable in that position. So we will talk a little bit more about the defense and about Manchester City in the podcast segment. But just to finish on this TV segment, Rob, just a word on Simone Inzaghi and AlHilals, and what a wonderful win this was for them and for him, for Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabian football in general, because as you mentioned at the start of your first answer, it also shows that there's talent and there's level outside of Europe and outside of the Premier League.
Yeah, always that great quote that he came up after the game. We've reached Everest without any oxygen. And he's got the best out of players like Malcolm and Koulibaly. Ruben Neves looks fantastic. Bono, I may argue, is one of the best goalkeepers in the world at the moment. He had an absolutely storming game as well. And he's come in and he's had a matter of weeks, hasn't he, to get used to the players and learn their strengths and their weaknesses. I very much doubt when he was managing in Italy that he was watching the Saudi Arabian League week in, week out. So he wouldn't know what he was getting inherited when he went there as a manager. But this is maybe why he is the highest paid manager in the world, because he's assessed it very quickly. He's tinkered with the style. He's also knows probably Manchester City better than his own players, and he's played to City's weaknesses and found the strengths of his players as well. And it was a statement victory, and it may yet be a statement Club World Cup as well.
Rob, let's stay a little bit with AlHilals, because really I think they deserve a lot of prizes. You mentioned Simone Inzaghi doing an amazing work, considering he's been there 2 minutes, and already you see the improvement with that team. Not that they were not good before; they're still one of the best Saudi leagues in the league with Al Ittihad and Al Nasser. There's no doubt they didn't win the title this season. It was Al Ittihad, but they won it the past 2 years. But you saw already how good they were in this tournament, how good they've been in this tournament, even against Real Madrid in the group stages, where I thought that 1-1 draw was a well-earned draw, and they played really well. And then in this, targeting the City left side in the way they build up, the way they attack with Malcolm and Milinkovic-Savic and Koulibaly, and Cancelo all on the AlHilals right-hand side. So hitting that left-hand side for City, even without Mitrovic, who is arguably their best player, who's injured, who's there with them, but injured and hasn't played yet in this tournament. Marcos Leonardo doing a very fine job there after his move from Benfica. So all of this is great for Simone Inzaghi to do. And Milinkovic-Savic after the game saying, listen, this is a good league. We are a really good team. People don't respect us enough, which you touched upon a little bit in your last answer, which I guess is fair. And we saw how good they've been in this tournament. But the Saudi League is not the Premier League either, right?
It's certainly not the Premier League. It's not La Liga. It's not the Bundesliga. With Cristiano Ronaldo, did he say he feels that it's maybe on par with some of the top 5 leagues? I may kind of tease you, and so maybe it's on par with the French league, but we don't go that far. But you look at the players that are in there, and they have quality players, not just at AlHilals, but the other clubs that are in the Saudi league as well. They're taking players over with big pay packets at the peak of their careers, and they're not just packing their flip flops; they're packing their football boots and the shin pads as well. Inzaghi, people were saying, was he getting 50 odd million a year or something like that to go over there? But he's not gone out there and just looked at villas and where he may be living. He's very quickly assessed the team, probably knowing him 24 hours a day, studying the players, studying what he's got, but then studying the opposition, being able to outwit and untie Manchester City as well. And obviously, when they go over there, they're trying to make a big statement. They're trying to put Saudi football on the map. And people do have short memories. You forget that, Saudi and their superb supporters as well made a big impact that they beat Argentina at the last World Cup, didn't they? So, yeah, maybe, if this is the FA Cup or something like that, or the Champions League, these are one of these teams that sneak in under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned that win in the Qatar World Cup. Salem Al-Dosari, who is maybe the best Saudi player right now, the captain of the national team, and Al-Hilal player who was not there for that game. So even Al-Hilal beating City without one of their best players or key players. And they obviously, I think the level of the Saudi league could vary a lot depending on what team you're facing. Some teams don't have as much talent, obviously, than Al-Hilal or Al-Ittihad or Al-Nassr with Cristiano or Benzema and those kind of guys, which is, to be fair, a bit similar in other top leagues too. But I think this is good for Saudi, for Saudi football, for the Saudi league, to see that Al-Hilal can draw with Real Madrid, can beat Manchester City in what was an incredible game. Now they face Fluminense in the quarterfinals, a game that they can absolutely win, and then it would be Chelsea or Palmeiras in the potential semi-final if they do that. So even the pathway towards a potential final for Al-Hilal looks good. If we go back to Man City, and we talked about already the defensive mistakes and fragility that they've had, which is not new and is something that they have to address and get better. We saw Pep Linders on the bench for his first competition really since joining the club, which I think took a lot of people by surprise. Him, the former Jurgen Klopp, number 2, who, arch rivals were City at the time. And it's a friendly rivalry, but they were still competing against each other for Champions League and Premier League trophies. Now to see him on that City bench, to me, I still need to get used to it. But Pep Linders is all about pressing, right? And counter-pressing and have that intensity. And this is surely something that Guardiola wanted by hiring him. And do you think maybe we still need to wait a little bit to see the impact on Pep Linders on these City teams? And maybe what we saw defensively against Al-Hilal is this team still trying to adapt to the principles of Linders, added to the principles of Guardiola with and without the ball?
Absolutely as well. I mean, these are very, very early days, aren't they? Linders will come in and he will be learning the players and learning the manager. It's a new brains trust at the top of the club. Remember that Bigaristaner's gone. Lilo is his trusty assistant, the guy that looks like Kevin Keegan that sits alongside him, that has been his trusty lieutenant for so long as well. So he's lost his director of football. He's lost his number 2. He's lost his captain in De Bruyne. So those that maybe he has around him that he trusts have gone. And then new voices within the club and within the changing room as well. And Pepper's made it very clear that yes, this is a tournament and Manchester City have gone there to win there as well, but he's given the players enough kind of downtime and free time and family time and pal time as well, and he hasn't been kind of drilling them on the training ground as you see in these behind the scenes documentaries as well. And when they do have their rest and their recovery and they get back together again in a few weeks time, I think that is when the Linders will be right, okay, this is it, this is how we bring about the evolution, maybe not the revolution that you've had at other clubs, because you look at Liverpool, they've changed through slot, you look at Barcelona, Flicker's coming with a new way of thinking. Yeah. We'll talk about Real Madrid in a moment or two as well. And these clubs who have changed in the last 2 or 3 years. And it's clear for Manchester City. And what we've seen over there is that same old, same old. Different players have come in. It's a different kind of look to the team with the names that are in there as well. But it's the same old City when it comes to defending as a team and defending as a unit. You can blame the defenders, but it's much bigger than that. It's the players that are ahead of them as well. And they have to find a style. And they've got the new coach and the new voice on the training ground. And they've got a couple of months to do that before they hit the ground running in the Premier League season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we said a few times last season that I think the old Guardiola style, the one with the slow build-up and the 1,000 passes, if you want, as we saw last season, I think a probably reached the limit. You can't say that it's not good anymore. But certainly, I think we saw a lot of really good things from teams in Europe and in the Premier League last season with far more verticality than anything City had done before under Guardiola. And I think this is the evolution they have to gear towards, to more verticality, more intensity in the way they play, instead of, I remember a game, the City Liverpool game at the Etihad last season, where I was at the stadium, and you see so much better at the stadium, but there's a ball at some point in transition for Jeremy Doku to go on the left hand side, and he goes forward, and then after the halfway line, he stops, turns around, and play the ball back for the ball to be recycled, and them to start their build the phase then. And the ground went a bit mad, and I'm like, what? And this is so Guardiola. Put your foot on the ball, start recycling the ball, and we do what we were good at, which is this build-up phase where you move the ball well and you kind of move the opposition's block from right to left, and until you find some space somewhere and you make the difference that way. But that ball there was for Doku to bomb forwards and play in that transitions. But yet, this is not what he was told to do. So he stopped, went back, and they started their thing. And I don't think this is possible anymore if you really want to go far in the Premier League or in the Champions League. So for me, the hiring of Pep Linders is for that. Is for that evolution, and it would take a bit of time, like you said, but it was inevitable that Guardiola had to change something, and that's it. We didn't see much in the Club World Cup, that's for sure. And they will go back now to England. They will give a bit of time off to the players and regroup and go again for the Premier League. They will have a more time now than if they reach the final of this Club World Cup. But what would you say, just to finish on City? What do you expect for them next season, after what we saw last season, after what we've seen in the Club World Cup for the last 2 weeks, let's say, and the signing that they made, the likes of Cherki, the likes of Ait Nouri, Reinders, Pep Linders? Do you expect them to take a bit of time at the beginning of the Premier League season to get going? Do you expect them to be able to compete with Liverpool and Arsenal for the title in the Champions League the same? Or do you think it'll be one of those transition seasons that will maybe see them needing more time to get ready?
I think Pep and the Manchester City supporters and people in England as well, football fans in England, will expect Manchester City to be better than last season with the players that they've signed. They're excellent young players who are yet to reach the peak of their powers as well. But Pep, as you say, he has to revolutionise as well. I've commentated on Spanish football for a long time, and in the last season of Pep at Barcelona, everything that you were just saying there, Jules, about they kind of get to the edge of the sea and they dip their toe in the water and then they come out again and they go backwards and they start again. That's what we saw at Barca when Pep was there, and then Luis Enrique came in and he had a fantastic evolution and revolution at Barcelona, and it was the same kind of style and they played a different way as well. So I think, Pep Linders may be the man, maybe the bigger Pep at the club as well, to change things around, to play this more energetic and bring the best out of the young players that have come in with great expectation as well. And it's so important as well that they get Rodri back in the team and they get Kovacic fit again, and they're not relying on the likes of Silva and Gundogan, who are in their autumn years of their career at Manchester City. Yeah,
I agree. It'd be quite fascinating to see what Guardiola and Linders do for this team, and how quickly they're ready and how quickly they can maybe change their style a little bit and see what they do in the Premier League and in the Champions League. And obviously, we will have you covered on the Gab and Juls Show with Rob sometimes, of course, to see the evolution of this team. Well, enough AlHilals and Manchester City, Rob. What about some quick hits together?
Let's go.
We start with Real Madrid. I've also qualified for the quarterfinals of the Club World Cup, Rob. They beat Juventus 1-0 on Monday night, I think it was. Do you like what you're seeing so far under Xabi Alonso?
Absolutely. I have to say, pleasantly surprised. And it has been a revolution under Xabi Alonso. He's come in, he has energised the team. He's obviously got new faces in there with Hussein at the back and now Trent Alexander-Arnold. And what the fans will like as well is that he's brought a player through from the development team, Gonzalo Garcia, who's been keeping your pal Mbappe out of the team.
I know.
So early days in the office, yes, he's changed the face of the team. And they're now a team that is possession-based and taking the game to the opposition rather than Carlo Ancelotti, who had made the most of the players that he had and kind of formed a team that was happy to roll with the punches. And this is a team that's throwing the punches now, Jules, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? I never saw a team with a back three of Real Madrid, certainly not for a long, long time. And some might, as you know, Real Madrid are so purist, especially the fan base. And I was wondering how that back three would go down with the fan base, with the club. Can you play back three when you're Real Madrid? And I think the way we saw against Juventus, especially maybe more in the second half, where Tchouaméni was a bit of a hybrid centre back in that back three at times, but stepping up into midfield in possession and in other moments of that game, I thought was very smart from Xabi Alonso. I agree with you. I love what we saw, and there's still work to be done. It was not perfect, even against Juventus. Juve played really well at times, and Juve are not that great, let's be honest. But there was a lot of really good things. And surely, Rob, as you know, when my boy Mbappe comes into the team, they will be even better, look even better. So, yeah, just on that, I think it's really exciting times if you're a Real Madrid fan.
On the subject of your boy, he played his first minutes in the tournament. How did Kylian look?
Well, yeah, because as you know, he was not really well at all. He had to go to hospital, lost 5 kilos through the bad bug that he got. And he played half an hour. He came on 60 or 65th minute, I think he was. And I don't think we were supposed to expect a lot. He was, let's say, it was a kind of a slow return, to put it nicely. He didn't do too much. There was one nice overlap with Vinny, and then the cross could not find anybody. But it would need a bit of time, I think, to get back to close to his best, fitness-wise, and also in terms of understanding this new system with a new coach. I think Xabi said that in the quarterfinals, Kylian will look better, which I think is right. But for now, I was just happy he was back on the pitch, and we just can't take too much away from what he did anyway.
He's not a bad player to be bringing back into the fold at this stage of the competition either, is he?
No, you're absolutely right. And in the quarters, Rob, Real Madrid will face Dortmund, who beat Monterrey in their last 16 2-1. Do you think Dortmund could trouble this Real Madrid side?
I'd like to be more positive for the German supporters out there, but truthfully, no. I think Real Madrid are gathering strength and they're looking very good under Alonso. Guirassy, for me, has been one of the players of the tournament so far, and they may be the dark horses, as we mentioned earlier on. AlHilals have come through, and nobody expected them to be such a force. And Dortmund were they fourth last year out the Champions League, I think, with quarter-final stages as well. And again, a team that's in transition, you'd struggle to name many of their players in there. But sometimes when you get these competitions, it is the team that is more of a unit and more familiar with each other that kind of advances as well. But truthfully, if you're asking me, I would imagine that Real Madrid are the heavy favourites for a reason in that game, Jules.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Kovac played again a back three in similar way to Xabi Alonso in the game against Monterrey. So the 5 in defensive shape, the 5-3-2, I think will be the system that will play against Real Madrid as well in this quarterfinal. And I think that's the right system to play against this Real Madrid team, to mash them up, to don't give them much when Real Madrid go forward. So I think tactically it would be an interesting battle there between Xabi Alonso and Niko Kovac. But I think you're right. I think we have to make Real Madrid the favourite in this quarterfinal.
Well, 2 big European names are through, but one isn't. Inter Milan didn't make it after their shock defeat against Fluminense, Jules.
Yeah, I really didn't see this one coming, Rob. You know, and Fluminense and Thiago Silva have been really good. They've got a lot of players who used to play in Europe. They've got talent in midfield. They're a tough team to play against. I get all of that, and they play the back three, going back to back 3, back 5 that we discussed it for Real Madrid and Dortmund. Back 5 against Inter, and to be fair, I thought they were great. And Christian Chivu is struggling a little bit now in his few weeks in charge after taking over Simone Inzaghi. And it was not the Inter Milan team that we used to see. They had enough chances, let's make that clear, to at least come back into the game after conceding a very early and soft goal to concede. But overall, I don't think there was enough there for them to qualify. And it's a big disappointment. And I think it will be a tough season ahead for Inter Milan, both in the Champions League and in Serie A, and for Fluminense. Well done for them. We saw really good things for Brazilian teams in the Club World Cup. Now they play AlHilals in the quarterfinals with clear objective to go through to the semi-final. But for Inter, not the way they would have liked to finish this Club World Cup. And after that defeat, Rob, things kicked off properly. Lautaro had some comments saying, like, listen, if you don't want to play here, then you can leave. And we all thought that was for Hakan Çalhanoğlu. And then Çalhanoğlu responded by saying, like, I didn't do anything wrong for this team. I've always did my best for Inter Milan. So those things I think are quite rare, where people call each other out via media. Where would you stand on all this mess?
Do you know, as a journalist and as a fan, you kind of like it when this kind of thing goes on, doesn't it? Because obviously Martinez was all wrapped up. He didn't actually name any names. He said that there was somebody that didn't want to play, and if they don't want to play for the team, then you can leave. It was almost like a Rebecca Vardy, Rooney moment, wasn't it? It was Çalhanoğlu that did it. And then the president came out and said this was the case. And of course, then Hakan came out and said that he had never betrayed the shirt. But then again, it seems that his future is uncertain as well. So, yeah, I can't remember anything that's been quite so high profile as that. Maybe the Roy Keane at the World Cup, and they're making a whole film about that as well. So maybe in a few years' time, we'll have a film about the whole situation.
That's not what you want as well after a defeat and after like a difficult last few weeks for Inter Milan and the new manager Juve.
Yeah, we may get more of it when they start interviewing the players when they come up in the Premier League. Well, Jules, a lot has been talked about the conditions and how this World Cup is being played, and they're kind of freakish conditions and kind of almost unique to the United States.
Yeah, you're right, and for all the listeners or people watching us that have never been to the US at this time of the year, it can be very stormy. It's very hot. It's very humid in some part of the country, which we knew. This is nothing new. We knew that before, right? And it would be the same in a year time when they host the World Cup with Mexico and Canada. Igor Tudor came out after the game against Madrid saying, like, I had 10 players asking me to come off and to be replaced because they could not play, they could not breathe, they could not play in that very humid, hot, sticky weather and conditions, which I can understand. But again, it's the same for the two teams, not just Juventus. Real Madrid had to go through the same things. I know it's not ideal also because some of the kickoff times, local times in the US is 12 p.m. or 2 p.m., 3 p.m., which is the worst time to play there. I get that. I'm not sure what else FIFA could have done once they start when they opted to stage the competition there. It was always going to be like that. You can't have all full stadium with aircon inside and a roof like the one in Atlanta, for example. So I'm not really sure what the answer is or what Igor Tudor or the managers want to do. But we saw Jurgen Klopp being heavy critical of the tournament. Pep Guardiola as well. Enzo Maresca saying that this was not football, and what we saw with the Benfica game, the game being stopped because of the storm coming, having to wait 2 hours before playing the last 5 minutes of the game. I'm just not sure, Rob, really. I don't know what you feel, but what the answer is here, to be fair.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's an equation that they have to solve before the World Cup next year, because they should be playing at the coolest part of the day, which is the evening. When we start La Liga and our coverage here on ESPN, the games are kicking off at 9 o'clock local at night, which isn't okay for the US and the UK audience. But for the European audience, if they played the games when it was in the evening and it was a little bit cooler, then they're going to lose their European and their worldwide audience as well. So and that's going to be the same for the World Cup. So it needs some big brains on that one, or air-conditioned stadiums as they had in Qatar as well, or covered stadiums or something.
Yeah, you're right. And as you know, I'm here for the Women's Euros in Switzerland, and the two favourites probably are Spain and England. Your two countries, let's be honest, Rob, you must be a bit torn about.
Yeah, obviously I'm very much attached to Spanish football, having seen the evolution of the Wins game over there as well, and the England team as well. But back in the day, I used to train with Carol Thomas, one of the England captains, back in the day, one of the original Lionesses as well. And I've covered both teams, commentated on England in the UK, and I'm just part of a documentary that's come out on the Hermosa Rubiales story as well. If I'm honest, I think Spain are going to be the better of the teams. They've had their issues as well. Bonmati on the eve of the tournament has picked up viral meningitis. She was posting pictures of herself in hospital, which has frightened the supporters. They've got goalkeeping issues as well. Katakoli has got tonsillitis. They've got a new coach in there as well. And a little like England as well, they've had their issues where the established players have not made the squad. Notably, Jenny Hermoso isn't there, and Misa Rodriguez. And of course, with England as well, there are a lot of questions to be answered. I don't think anybody out there, and I've listened to a lot of the experts who know a lot more about the England team, the Lionesses, than me, and nobody quite knows what team they're going to play and what they're going to do with Lauren James.
Yeah.
Sticking with the Euros, Jules, what's happened so far? How's it impressed you?
Yeah, it's been a good start. I mean, Switzerland, the hosts, were beaten by Norway in what was a really good game. So we see here there's a lot of really good energy and a good vibe about it. It's a bit of a shame that the Swiss could not win against Norway, but they have more to come, and they will face Finland and Iceland in the next two games. So I think they can still very much qualify, which I think would be really good for the competition.
And briefly, Jules, how are the French girls going to fare up?
Oh, that's a great question, Rob. I've got high hopes.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah, and they've changed head coaches at a time that I thought Hervé Renard, who was there for the World Cup and then the Olympics, I thought we'd continue at least until these Euros. He didn't want to. Clearly, the Olympics was the only reason why he was there. Did an okay-ish job, a decent job if you want, because I think there's more talent than what he did with that team. And now he's former number 2, Laurent Bonadé, took over. And again, with not much experience of women's football, which I think could be a bit of a problem at times. I don't know. He decided to get rid of 2 of the most experienced players that we have in Wendy Renard and Eugénie Le Sommer, which again might not have been the worst idea, but certainly the timing was the worst timing possible, the way he did it and when he did it. So I'm not really sure exactly what the mindset of this squad is right now. And it's a tough group. They play England, Wales, the Netherlands. And the glass ceiling for us has very often been the quarterfinals. Only one time we went to the semi-final, and that was in the last Euros. And we stopped there. But the quarterfinal seems to always be the moment where we stop. And this is still a good generation. They've got talents. So I'm really hoping that Jigsaw can get all the right pieces together at the right time. But to start with the England game on Saturday here in Zurich would be tough. So let's see. I've got high hopes, but I would not be surprised if it's not actually the best of tournament, because it feels a little bit like a transition period, and I don't really like this.
May the best team win.
Yeah, exactly, my friend, exactly. Atletico Madrid have signed Alex Baena from Villarreal for almost 50 million euros. Yeah, 50. Do you like this, Rob? Do you like this deal, Rob? Sorry.
Absolutely. Everyone's a winner. I think Villarreal have got a very good price for a very talented player. Atletico have got an international class player in an area that they do need to improve. They need to refresh there under Simeone. They need a little bit more energy in the team. And he's a Spain international. And to be a Spain international midfield player currently, with all of the players that they have out there as well, the guy has done good. So, maybe it's a slightly inflated price by Spanish standards, but it's an absolutely fantastic deal for Atletico Madrid and Villarreal. And I'm very excited to see him next season.
And he's only 23, isn't he? So that left-hand side where we saw Gallagher playing, or we saw Barrios playing at times, and players that maybe were more defensive-minded than a proper left side creative player, at least with Baena, that would be another option. El Cholo can still play a more defensive-minded player there if he wants to, or if the opposition needs him to. But at least with Baena, you could have Giuliano on one side and Baena on the other side in a 4-4-2 that actually gives you a lot of creativity on each flank.
Yep, looks like his kind of player. Now, Olivier Giroud is officially back in France. He will play for Lille, and this is a pretty big story, Jules.
Oh, it is. It was massive. I mean, and to be fair, he's a World Cup winner, and I know he's 39 in September, so coming back to finish his career, but he's still really fit. You look at him, and it doesn't really look like he's 39 years old. I think it's big for Liga to have both Paul Pogba in Monaco coming back, Olivier Giroud in Lille coming back as well to the league. I think for Olivier, it's 13 years after he left Montpellier to come to Arsenal and start his international career, if you want, abroad. I'm not sure how well he's going to do and how many goals he's going to score, but you know that he's going to be a great guy to have in your dressing room. I don't know if you saw, Rob, but they put they announced him on their social media platforms and everything by making him appear basically in the middle of the Grand Place in Lille, in the city centre. So he was there in his shirt, and you had all the tourists, all the people who live in Lille were there, and then suddenly Giroud was there, and they did it really well. It was really nice. And then he had his press conference on Wednesday, and he was so excited, and I think he's great. I love it when, instead of going to Saudi, for example, where he could have gone, or even staying in MLS where he was not doing that well. I like the fact that he can kind of have one last challenge to go back home and play in Liga to kind of end that cycle of his career. One season, maybe two. He's got a 2-year contract. See how well he does or doesn't do so well, but he will be there. And I just love that from him. So I'm really happy he's back home.
Absolutely.
Rob, who is Suarez Castrelo, and why are we talking about him on this show?
Well, he's an 18-year-old youth team player that was playing for Atletico Madrid. Hasn't played for them since last October. That's because he's been stalling on signing a contract, and he is going from Atletico to Real Madrid. And this is a big story. Exactly. And it's not just a big story because he's gone from one to the other. It means they have broken a non-aggression pact that the clubs have. They've kind of got this gentleman's agreement that they will not steal players from each other, because the likes of Atletico and Barcelona and Real are kind of shopping from the same kind of superstores and the same shelf as well. And but then again, Atletico are pretty angry about it. But then again, he came from Sporting Gijón to Atletico Madrid. But he is a bit of a star. He's one of the hot young prospects. He's played for Spain at youth level as well. And that is why you're hearing about him. And it may take a couple of years to hear a little bit more about him. But as we know in Spain and all over the world, the players and the stars are getting younger, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so.
Now, Jonathan David has not taken long to find his new club, Jules, and it is Juventus.
It is Juventus, and you might find it a little bit surprising that it's Juventus because they already have Dusan Vlahovic, obviously, on their books, who doesn't play much. They've got Randal Colomwani on their books, who's still loaned out by PSG to Juventus, but they want to keep him, and he wants to stay as well. So you're thinking, okay, another number 9 there. They might play with 2 up front, maybe, but then what do you do with Conceição and Yildiz behind them? But clearly, Joe David thought this was the best club for him. For Juventus, they're getting a player as a free agent. Nobody's free anymore, but you don't have a transfer fee to pay. And I really think he's a wonderful striker. And I think he's ready now to make that step up from Lille and from Liga to a better club. And Juventus are a better club. And I think maybe Italian football will suit him well. I would have liked to see him with you in La Liga, Rob, and see what he could have done there. But there's not many players. I think only 6 players in Europe have scored more goals than him for the last 5 years domestically in their league. And they are the big names. There's Salah and Mbappe, Lewandowski, Haaland, those kind of guys. So he's been super consistent in scoring goals, 20 plus goals each season for Lille in Liga. So let's see how he does in Serie A. Let's see how Juventus play with him and who plays next to him or who plays behind him. But I think it's a signing that makes sense for Juventus, and for him, it's a great new challenge that I'm sure he will thrive on. Victor Gyökeres and Eberechi Eze are both in talks with Arsenal right now, Rob, for a move this summer. Are they the right players, do you think, for the Gunners? And it feels like Gyökeres is the one more advanced of the two, but there's a lot of people who think that Eze could also be a good signing for the Gunners.
Yeah, I think there are 2 players that would walk into any kind of top 5 team in England or indeed the other major leagues in the world as well. And you can't say that about too many players as well. I think, I look at Manchester United and I don't think they're signing top 5 players. But Gyökeres may be the player to fill that void of a striker. And he is a proper centre forward, a goal scorer that Arsenal, the fans and the media and everybody who watches Arsenal have been screaming out for as well. He's a guy that is just so hungry for goals. It looks like he's severing his ties over there in Portugal in more ways than one. When it comes to Eze as well, he's an exciting talent. He's far from the finished product, but I think he would fit very much into the Arsenal system if they get him there as well. If Gyökeres gets in the starting 11, then they expect him to start scoring goals from day one. Whereas Eze, I think they can kind of blend him into the team, and they can use him sparingly as well. And then with that massive expectation, but he can take his game with Arsenal in the Champions League and with England as well to the whole next level.
I think for Arsenal fans listening, I think the Gyökeres one, who seem now to be the number 1 option ahead of Sesko. I think for a while there was one or the other. Even within the club, I think it was divided on who was more of a Sesko guy and who was more of a Gyökeres guy. It seems like Gyökeres now is the priority for them. The thing with Eze, they would need to sell, I think, to get to Eze. For Gyökeres, whether it's 60, 65, maybe 70 million, I think they can do that they have the money right now. For Eze, I think they will have to sell first. The likes of Kivior, Zinchenko, maybe Fabio Vieira, who's back now from his loan at Porto. I think they will need to sell first to be able to do the Eze transfer. Gyökeres, I think, is a more straightforward deal that they can afford right now. Eze will take a bit longer because I think they will have to sell first.
It's busy times behind the scenes at Arsenal because you'll say also like Akliouche, have I said that correctly, yeah, and Mosquera.
Yeah. So Akliouche, I can give more of an insight in there. Mahrez is a wonderful young player, really has done wonders at Monaco, played in the Champions League, played for France under 21, and is very close to the France A team, really left-footed player that can play out wide. He's a number 8 and number 10 position. There's a lot of things that Akliouche can do, super smart player. And Rob, as you know, Paris born and bred, which makes him extra special, obviously, in my eyes. And for Joaquin Mosquera, you've seen him a lot at Valencia. Tell us a little bit more of the player he is. He can play right back, he can play centre back.
Yeah, he's a tremendous footballer all round. I think he'd probably play holding midfield player as well if they wanted to play there as well. They developed him very slowly at Valencia. He's got more and more game time as well. He's a fantastic athlete. He's a very good footballer. He has presence. He kind of fills that void in the centre of defence. He's got speed. And yeah, if he came to a bigger club than Valencia, he's not the finished product. But again, he's a player that may be the third or fourth centre-back at a club. And he would be a very wise signing for any team.
Rob, for AlHilals, I think Monaco would probably want around the 50 million mark for him. For Mosquera, we're talking, 20 million euros, maybe, something like that, a bit more?
You would imagine, because Valencia don't have a great deal of bargaining power. They're absolutely broke at the moment. So I think they would start listening to any offers over about 20, probably ask for 30, and then probably settle somewhere in the middle as well. But yeah, I think whoever got him would be getting an absolute bargain at that kind of figure.
I agree. Everton, I've also found a new player, and their new striker for next season is Thierry Barry, the French under-21 international. We both know him really well. What do you make of this deal for Everton?
Do you know what? It's encouraging. Barry is one of these players who, again, is learning his game. I think he's only 22 years of age. He's played for France, isn't he, at the youth level as well. I think he scored 11 goals, 37 games last season. First made his name a couple of years over there at Basel, and he developed as the season went on. And I live on Merseyside. I've got more Evertonian supporters than any other team for some reason. I don't know how I managed to kind of attract these Evertonians, and they'll be asking me about him. And it's a break from what Everton have been doing for the last few years as well, where they sign players whose best years are behind them, have had a reputation at a big club. And this is going back to the old days of David Moyes, where he signed players and talent where the best years were ahead of them, and he could develop them as well. And if Barry comes into the team and he comes to Everton as well as to be as expected, then they have amazing raw talent. I think he's 6'5". They need a striker to replace Calvert-Lewin up there as well. I think at the moment they've only got 14 senior professionals signed to the club. So they would take anybody. But yeah, I'm encouraged by it as somebody has links to Everton as well, that they're signing a player at this kind of level.
You know, I like him a lot. I've seen him developing in Switzerland, as you mentioned, with Basel. He had, some have linear careers, right? They are really good when they're kids. They go through academies. They don't have to be like Mbappe, but that kind of pathway, really, and trajectory towards professional football and first team football. For Tiano, it's been very more difficult. He had to go through lower leagues and then to Switzerland, and then Villarreal scouted him there, and he did well for them last season. He's very raw, as you mentioned, because he's still young, and because, not just young at 22, but also because, as we've been saying, his pathway towards the top has been quite difficult. So there's still a lot to learn. But I was with Gal Clichy the other day, with the France under-21 assistant coach, and he's a massive fan, and he says there's so much potential there to really have a great player on your hands. So I'm sure Moyes can do wonders with Barry. He's a good kid, as well, that listens, that works hard, that is always there, wants to improve all the time. So I think this could be, I know it's a bit of money, 35 million pounds, I believe, or something like that. I get that for somebody with so much limited experience, really, of first team football and top flight football, certainly in the big five leagues. But I think he's a very promising one. So I think well done, Everton, on this.
Good news for the Blues. Well, Serge Aurier, the former Tottenham and Paris Saint-Germain defender, is without a club, Jules, but it could have been very different.
It could have, Rob, because a few weeks ago he got a call from Mehdi Benatia, who is a Marseille sporting director. We said, "Hey, Serge," they know each other really well, obviously, from playing years together and etc. And he said, "Why don't you come to Marseille?" And Serge said this now very famous line, saying, "I would rather starve than play for that team," which I thought was a great line from Serge Aurier, who was born in Ivory Coast but moved to Paris when he was really young. So I think I can claim him as a Paris born and bred kid, and PSG is very much his club. Paris very much his city, and there is nowhere in a million years that Serge Aurier would one day wear the Marseille jersey, like Adrien Rabiot, another of my PSG Paris born and bred player and persons, like Rabiot is doing right now, because he obviously went there from Juventus to Marseille, and a lot of people in Paris didn't like it at all. For Serge Aurier, this could have never happened. He said he would rather starve, Rob, than actually wear that shirt. Barcelona have let Ansu Fati go to Monaco on loan after his loan to Brighton 2 seasons ago and coming back to the club last year. And while they're still hoping to recruit Nicol Williams at the club, Rob, what do you make of both these? First, Ansu Fati, what do you think of that move to Monaco? And then, do you think Nicol will happen to end in Barcelona? And what does that mean for Rafinha, for example, who was playing on that left-hand side?
Well, for Ansu Fati, very clever of Barcelona. They signed him to a new contract, I think, to the year 2028, and then a couple of days later, they've loaned him out to Monaco. I don't think he's got any future at Barcelona. They've made that very clear. But I hope for the young man, because he was a talent, and he had that horrible injury. He's never come back. That Monaco, the blue skies and the beautiful waters and that fantastic French air that you have as well. And they are the team of the Lost Boys at the moment. It has restorative powers for him, and he can find his talents again, and he's va-va-voom, and he can come back. When it comes to Nico Williams, this is a deal that everybody thought was going to happen last summer, but Barcelona didn't have the bucks to take him to Catalonia. It went a little bit quiet during the season as Rafinha took off and was playing in that position. Yep, it looks like Nico is back on, especially as the Spanish Federation have relaxed the financial constraints that Barcelona have at the moment. Hopefully it's just a question of time and maybe what number he takes as well.
But what, so what? Okay, imagine he signs. Nico Williams signs. What, you play Lewandowski as your 9. I mean, you need a space for Rafinha. So Rafinha will then move from the left-hand side to a more central position. Nico on the left, Lamine on the right, which means no room for a Dani Olmo, maybe Fermin Lopez. And then you have your midfield too, whether that's De Jong and Pedri or whoever else you want behind that. That's one that's very attacking. 2, you're moving out Rafinha from a position where he had a really good season, as you said, both in the league and in the Champions League. La Liga player of the season, one of the Champions League player of the season as well, into a different new position for him. Is Nico really worth all that kind of hassle plus the money on top?
I must admit, in my head, I've had exactly the same argument as you. I'm wondering where he fits into the Barcelona picture. And when you think of Nico Williams, you think about him attacking down the wing. But maybe this is the answer to the long-term question: what happens without Robert Lewandowski? Maybe we keep saying it's his last season, then he keeps coming back with an absolute bag full of goals as well. But they have to future-proof at Barcelona, and maybe what they do is see a different role to Nico Williams, where he doesn't play the traditional 9 role, or maybe Rafinha moves into the centre, or maybe they give eventually, we've been talking about the number that Lamine Yamal is going to wear, maybe they give him number 9 and he takes that position as well. But I have to say, on last year's best starting 11, it does seem that signing Nico Williams is a little bit of a luxury, but there's a little time frame to take players like that, and it appears that is the time frame for Barcelona. But again, what happens with Dani Olmo?
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. It'd be interesting to see, though, to be fair.
Jules, we now know who will play in the Gold Cup final, and it's hardly a surprise.
It's hardly a surprise, Rob, because we will have a USA-Mexico final. I was trying to look through my notes. I can't find it anymore. Oh, yeah, that's it. It's the 8th final of the Gold Cup between Mexico and the USA. They know each other really well. I mean, at least it will be different managers on the head coaches on the benches as well, because Mauricio Pochettino will have his first final as a US head coach there, which is great. They beat Guatemala 2-1. In the semi-final last night, the night in between Wednesday and Thursday, which was a good game. Diego Luna, who, by the way, is half Mexican, half American, scoring the 2 goals. He's had a huge impact, kind of replacing Pulisic in the starting lineup. Pulisic is not there, as we know, in the Gold Cup squad for the US. And Diego Luna, a wonderful player, really, for the national team and for Real Salt Lake. So he would be leading this US team against the Mexico team that he could have easily chosen to play for, and probably would be in the other camp if he had chosen Mexico for his international career, really. And for Mexico, they beat Honduras 1-0. Raúl Jiménez, the Fulham striker, scored a game that they controlled pretty well. Not like the US, who was really tense toward the end against Guatemala. Let's see. I think it could be a really good final. I think they are probably, for me, a similar level right now, and also as a similar development under the head coaches heading towards the World Cup, which is a huge World Cup for both countries, considering they are hosting it. So I think this is a final that we'll have to wake up early, Rob, if we want to watch it, but that's fine. We can do that. We can watch a bit of Club World Cup and then a bit of the Gold Cup in the same night. But I think this is a final that could be worth us getting up early, Rob.
One of those crazy ones as well, Jules, which you don't get in the States very much, where there may be more away supporters than there are home supporters, whether it be Mexico.
Exactly. You're so right. So I think worth us getting up to watch. Let's go back to Barcelona, Rob. They've launched a new kit for the season and people absolutely love it. It's the return of the maybe more traditional, I guess, vertical stripes for it. But the craziness is all about Lamine Yamal's potentially, I was going to say new number, but it seems like potentially new number. There might be a new number. There might not be a new number. We're not sure. It might be the 10. It might not be the 10. So first the shirt and then Lamine's number.
I'm going to refer the shirt back to you in a second because somebody from Yorkshire cannot talk about fashion to somebody in Paris, can we? I'll just go for the black T-shirt. Look, you're the man that knows about football shirts as well. As long as it has the name very clearly on the back and the number, so that when I'm commentating, I can tell exactly who the player is. That's all I care about. I prefer the yellow ones, if I'm honest. It's much easier to commentate on. When it comes to the number, I'm getting the number 10. I think he was 19, of course, wasn't he? But it's a magical number at Barcelona Football Club. Maradona, Messi, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo as well. You have to earn that number. And I think in his couple of years in the first team as well, he's earned the number. And I would imagine the marketing men behind the scene are going to absolutely want him to be the new Barcelona number 10. There'll be a whole new range coming out, I'm sure. But I'll leave the assessment of the strip down to you.
It's a beautiful shirt. It is a beautiful shirt. And on one hand, I really want him to get the number 10 because he's the 10, because as you said, like he's the next one in line to all those incredible players that they've had. But on the other hand, I was thinking I like the fact that he could be himself too, and it doesn't have to be the 10 to be the great player, one of the greatest players in the world, and potentially at some point the Ballon d'Or winner and all of that. And he could do that with 19, he could do that with 12, he could do that with any numbers really. And I understand the marketing side of it too. But I mean, if he's got the 10, great. It would be a great 10. If he's got the 19 or the 70, 72 for whatever reason, it would be a great 72 as well. Do you know what I mean? But hey, it's not just me in charge at Barcelona or in charge of Lamine Yamal's career.
You had more numbers there than some kind of bingo call. You know that, don't you? Hey, Youssef Bellali was one of the standout players at the Club World Cup. And this is a story I've not heard of. He's very much come back down to earth, Jules.
In every sense of the word, my friend, because as you said, he was great at the Club World Cup with Espérance de Tunis, who did well, and he was the star of their team. And he's if you don't know him, he played in France a lot and in the Middle East and in North Africa. He's an Algerian international who is a bit of a maverick, street player, incredible, technically so gifted, but a bit of a madhead at times. And certainly the story is very much down the Youssef Bellali streak, if you want, because he was on the flight back from the US to Paris first, and then to go from Paris to Algiers in transit, and got arrested by the air police or whatever you call it, because he had a massive argument with a steward and stewardess on his flight back, something to do with his son and the seat belt or something like that.
He must have got a middle seat. That always upsets people on those flights. You never want a middle seat.
Absolutely not. And then you see those photos of Youssef Bellali literally handcuffed by the air police or whatever, and going to the police department of the airport, Roissy Charles de Gaulle in Paris. Crazy stuff. So I hope it's all good enough for Bellali, that he was able to make it back to Algeria. But again, a story that for me, who has known him for so many years, that is not surprising at all.
Wow.
Exactly. Why exactly? Rob, that's all we have time on the show today. Thank you so much for coming. It was an absolute pleasure to do the show with you. We had sad news, great news, a lot of football, a lot of fashion as well in the show. So thank you so much for coming along. My pleasure. And I'm sure Gab will be back soon with Texter Time. Exactly, Texter Time. We didn't have time to make Texter Time, but it's also Gab's punchline very much so. So Gab will be back on Monday. We're done Hutchinson because I'll be here in Switzerland traveling to another place for the Women's Euros. So you'll be back with Gab and Don on Monday. And until then, as Gab always said to finish the show, something like love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.